times and the difficult ones. I'd like to thank the Gesu, St. Ignatius, Beaumont, and Grand Village communities for continuing to rally by our side. You've always been there for us, and that strength carries us more than you'll ever know. To the caregivers that tirelessly and selflessly cared for my father, we salute you for your magnificent efforts. Maria Domico, Comfort Care, and your devoted staff, Beth, Carmen, Amadi, Kalia, Elena, and my great friend Charles and Romino who recommended them. We'd also like to thank Grand Village team, Sheila, Danny, Corinthia, Tanisha, Brianna, and Kendrick. And of course, thanks to Father Vincent and Gesu Parish for their commitment to healing grieving families through the power of the Mass. Father Vincent and I go way back to our days at Ignatius. There is no one I don't have to celebrate my Father's Mass. And finally, I'd like to thank all my friends that traveled here to pay their respects. It makes a world of difference that you made the extra effort to show your support. We're truly grateful. And I'd like to just have you guys think about this. I'd like you to join us for the reception after Mass at John Carroll University, where we will do a deep dive into the legend of Fred Birdie Frank. All are welcome to share their stories. And just to give you a primer, these are the topics we'll cover. Captive audience. Fred Friend's guide to pontificating in a moving locked vehicle with multiple passengers that can't escape. Fred Friend's road rage for dummies. How to get the ball to Patrick. Lessons for teammates and strategies to feed the ball to Patrick for a better chance at overall success. Fred Friend's guide to working Nancy Pelosi into any non-political discussions. Boxing out Obama. Fred Friend uses basketball as a metaphor to combat liberalism. I don't know if you guys saw that where Obama was shooting some basketball. My dad used that as I'm gonna get him. I'm gonna box that guy out. When the levee breaks. Fred Friend's guide to canvassing University Heights to defeat that awful school levy. Fred Friend's guide to how to make it work with 9 children on an extreme budget, which includes Wiley backyard with 2 plastic kiddie pools and a hose, Happy Meal Sundays, hotels in Aurora, Ohio, 11 quarters for your teenage son to embarrass him into not going out on a Friday night, and dollar-shaped sponges from the bank as gifts. Fred Friend's guide to spotting liberal Hollywood actors, including Alan Alda, Alec Baldwin, Jane Fonda, George Clooney, Sean Penn, and Jimmy Kimmel. Sorry, boss. Green Jacket required, The Art of the Ush, featuring Fred Friend and Ignatius Camella, and how to get that money from the pew. What Hath God Wrought? Things we heard my dad scream from the basement. I don't know if you guys know what that word is or what that statement is, but when my dad would yell it, what hath God wrought, we didn't know what was happening. It was crazy. He was so incensed. And then finally, the whining Irish, Fred Friend and the Jerry Faust era. My dad would watch TV, and if they couldn't get a first down, he'd be crying, Dad, why can't they get just 1 yard? Cheer, cheer for old Notre Dame. Wake up the echoes, cheering her name. Sing a volley, praise on high, shake down the thunder from the sky. What though the odds be great or small, old Notre Dame will win over all, as her loyal sons and daughters go marching onward to victory. We knew that as kids growing up. V for Villanova, V for victory. I couldn't tell you what the rest of that song is at my school. That's how powerful my dad was. It was amazing to grow up in the household with him. He was such a strong and bright light, and all of us followed him. I remember when I was a young boy, we would play catch in the yard with my friends, and every day, clockwork at 6 o'clock, my dad would arrive on the school bus, on the RTA, getting back from work because we only had one car. And without fail, I would drop everything that I was doing with those friends, and I would run as fast as I could down the street and hit his knees and tackle him every single day. And he would turn around with his briefcase, and surely he was wearing rubbers, and we would race each other down to the house, and he would beat me every single time. Every single time. Flash forward to our father-son freshman get-together. It was a father-son night at Ignatius. You know, my dad's quite a bit older. He didn't have me until he was 44. They had us do a relay race. And the sons ran a 400 and the fathers ran a 200. And I tell you right now, I really thought my dad was either going to have a heart attack or pull a muscle or something. I mean, he was pushing 60. And I want to tell you, I don't know if I've ever been as proud of a person as I was of him. He shot out of that thing like a cannon. He beat all the younger dads. That guy would not be beat. And then I ran the fastest 400 of my life, and we won the whole thing. And I'll always remember that about my dad. What a competitor. The things that I'll remember about my dad are key things that he brought to the table. He was, and this is hard to explain, but he had a frugal generosity, okay? And that was a product of growing up in the Depression. He was born in 1927 on August 20th in Bellevue, Ohio. To Irvin and Margaret Friend. And 2 years into being a toddler, the Depression hit. And, you know, most people lost everything, including my grandfather losing his job. So things were tough. And growing up, we always knew about the Depression. We were always aware of it because it was such a guiding light in my dad's life. But one of the really neat things that my dad told me about was my grandmother. You know, they didn't have a ton, nobody had a ton, but she would bake pies and put it on the windowsill, and the hobos would come off of the train, and they would get the pies, and they would stay outside and eat it on the picnic table. And really, any food that they had, they would give away, and they didn't have a problem doing that. And I thought that was so special, and that was such a neat lesson for my father to learn. Because he was frugal, yet he was generous when it needed to be. And I think that's a very important lesson that I think our family learned down the road. He was a beautiful, beautiful baby boy with blonde hair and blue eyes. He was on a magazine cover when he was a toddler. And what an interesting and idyllic life he must have had growing up in that small town. He told me once that he was so wild and active that his mother tied him up on a chain to a garbage can to keep him from running out of the yard. I love it. I love it. That's such my dad. And it didn't really work. It didn't really work. So he grew up in this idyllic situation in a small town. But he was a really competitive guy. That was the other part of what really drove him. And, you know, the family had tough times. There were 4 of them. My Aunt Margie, my Uncle Neil, and my Aunt Carolyn. But they made it. They put things together. And my dad, being so competitive, he picked up this sport called basketball. And that guy was something else. He played for this team in Bellevue called the Whiz Kids. And this team went 25-0 and won the state championship in 1945. They defeated Massillon and Middletown on a Saturday, on the same day, to win the state championship. And Fred Friend was on the all-tournament team and made all-state. I know all the guys that played on the team: Gene Dudley, Vince Schlitt, Bob Green, incredible guys. And Bob Green was like my dad's best friend, and he was really good. And these stories stuck with us forever. And I think my dad appreciated the things that I went through because he knew what it took to be a champion. And it's a lot of hard work, and it's reliance on your teammates, and it's trust in one another. And those are the things that are perfect for a young man to learn at that age. And he just was in the right place at the right time. The Whiz Kids. Remember that name, look it up. 25-0, the smallest team to win a state championship in Ohio basketball history. They were Hoosiers before Hoosiers. They were the Buckeyes. All right? The other thing that really makes me think about my dad and what drove him to be who he was intellect, spirituality, and accountability. And he learned those things later on in his life. He was lucky enough to go to the Catholic college in the Midwest, the University of Notre Dame, and that is something he is so proud of, and we are all proud of as well. That school is full of all-Americans, super smart kids, and my dad was an English major, and down the road he would, you could ask my dad anything and he knew it. And that was the really awesome thing about him, is that he was not only a great athlete, but he was so smart. He was so book smart. He was a thesaurus and spell check and everything all wrapped up into one. We didn't have to go anywhere. And I love your mom, but we would not ask my mother for any tips in that. Mom was good with projects. She motivated you. She got you going. But dad was a spell check, and he quoted Shakespeare all the time, which is such a cool thing as a young child to hear in the house. I'll never forget it because it helped shape who I am. And then I had a great appreciation for the arts and literature. Spirituality at Notre Dame, you're never going to get more, spiritual than that place. The grotto, that's where my dad would go to pray novenas, walk the lake. I mean, you can cue the Rudy music right now and think of that imagery and how beautiful it is and what a special place that is. But my dad was soon taken out of Notre Dame to serve in the Army in the tail end of World War II. And this is another thing that happened to him there that shaped his life forever. Mr. Blazinski was or Dr. Blazinski was at the wake last night. They were best friends in the Army. I'm just so surprised that they would still be in the same town. And that is such a treat. But my dad was in the Army, and one of the MPs came up to him and said, Corporal Friend, you're going to have to go down to the administrative building. It was about a mile. He's 18 years old at this point, and they say to him, one of your parents has died, but they don't tell him who it is, because they didn't know. So my dad sharing the story with me is just the inner workings of what was going on in his mind as an 18-year-old. He had to walk about a mile from the barracks to the administrative building, and he had to think in his mind which one of his parents he could stand to lose, or what would happen next. And if it was his mom, then this. If it was his dad, then that. How were they going to survive? And when he got there, he found out that his dad had passed away in a car accident. And as a father, but also as somebody who can't imagine growing up without my dad. I mean, he did everything. He was an all-star. How do you lose your dad at 18 and still maintain your composure and take care of your family? That was going to be the question for him, and how he would approach and how he would tackle that. And that shaped the rest of his life. My dad left the Army, went back, took care of his mother, had to help with the kids, and then through the GI Bill, was able to go back to Notre Dame and finish up his education. But he was able to get money back home so that they could take care of the family. And you learn a whole lot. And my dad, that was a time where he had to grow up really fast. So my heart breaks when I hear that, he had to just be the guy. And you know what? For the rest of his life there, it was one big battle. Taking care of the kids, taking care of his mother, and then being responsible for everybody else. And I'll never forget that about my dad, because he was accountable and did everything he was supposed to do to make sure his family made it. All right? Then the next part of the whole thing is probably what his legacy really is. I mean, I can talk about him being a lawyer after law school, being a great teacher because he taught for 52 years. He was a lawyer for 62 years. But you know what? He was married for 71 years. All right? He got married in this church on September 1st, 1951, to that awesome, beautiful lady. And I'll tell you what, everyone has called Fred Friend a force of nature. If I could, pinpoint what he'd be Hurricane Fred. When he walks into a room, you know it. But that lady right there, Jackie Friend, is a tsunami. I mean, she is coming down the pipe, and she's knocking you over, whether you like it or not. And she was a perfect match for my dad. Because my dad, was a handful, and I apologize, Mom, half the time. It was a battle. And, it's like all my friends loved, they loved to come to the house and get my dad going. Is there going to be a Notre Dame game on so we can see what he does? He might, we used to laugh too. I got embarrassed, but it was so funny if like 5 of us were in the house and we were on the corner having a drink, and then we'd look over and my dad had somebody cornered, and we were like, oh my God, I wonder what he's talking to him about. Like, that poor kid. What can he possibly be saying to that guy? But my mom, just as much of a force of nature. And the thing I love about my parents the most is, and it's something that I have, they tell jokes and stories, and they don't wait for somebody to get the punchline and laugh. They laugh. They laugh themselves because they think they are so funny. And that is perfect for me because, then there's no anticipation of failure. You just throw that stuff out there, you laugh, it's for your amusement. And I think that's why the two of them got along so well together. They had a blast, they had kids immediately. My sister Colleen was born, a beautiful baby girl. There's a really beautiful poem that my dad wrote to my mom about that. I didn't want to sap it up too much, especially crying on the front end, but it was gorgeous, and it showed you what a tender and caring person he was. And my dad, and I was telling people at the wake last night, my dad was not a cold guy. He was either really warm, and that's tender, or completely hot. 0 to 100. All right, that was his personality. But he loved my mother dearly. They had all these kids, Colleen, then Noreen. Colleen, the responsible one, how proud he must be of her that she became a teacher and an administrator and got her higher education just like him. It's incredible. She was very responsible, and that is a huge win for him as a father. And then you go down the line, and my sister Noreen, she was bad news for a while. She gave us a lot of problems. She gave me problems, but my dad was like, you can't bring Noreen anywhere. She's out of control. But that personality made her a perfect producer. That was really tough for my father because she got sick, but she battled. She battled just like he would, and she never gave up. And they shared a very special bond. But what a successful person! What a successful person to put her sickness into something that would help people. It did not sit on it. Did not sit back and say, "Woe is me." And that's exactly what my father would do. And then you got my brother Buzz, who left us too soon as well. And man, he had great sense of humor, just like my dad, and his daughters are beautiful. We laugh all the time about the things that he did. And Coops, probably the biggest secret in the family, probably one of the best, probably the best athlete in the family. And just a super light in everyone's life. And I'll tell you, towards the end, she would just show up unannounced and be with my dad, flying from anywhere, and just be there. What a wonderful, wonderful person my sister Cooper is, and she's got wonderful kids. Christopher and Brendan. Brendan has a baby he's very proud of. And all these things are branches of love that come out of my mom and dad. Then you have my twin sisters. They're really fun and unique and crazy. I'll tell you what, Laura, the only bad mark on maybe my dad's record was allowing Laura to fall out the second-story window out of an arm. Laura, how'd that happen? And she's got wonderful kids, super smart, married Fred, and just a great family. And my sister Lucy, those 4 boys, and her husband Mark raised these great kids that were terrible in the beginning because they were boys. But how can you fault boys? And they come to visit their grandpa and take care of him and grandma, and you just got to be so proud as a grandfather. And I mean, what a great situation for my dad. And then my brother Bill. They were the best of friends. My brother Bill was just like my dad in spirit, in fieriness, all right? They were very beautiful blue eyes and just a firecracker. Like, he'd get in there, my brother Bill. And what a lovely family. Corrine and Billy and Matthew. He was really proud of you guys. And my sister Bridge. What a great daughter for Dad. Came and took care of him. Just wonderful stuff. He loves you so much, and you got 2 beautiful kids, and you married an attorney. And he's got to be on cloud 9 about that, right? And then I got my boys, and Michelle, my beautiful wife. And these are all the things that come out of love. And I think my dad, that was the thing that made him the most happy, was, not winning cases. He did enough of that, and I think he helped a ton of people in Gesu Parish. I mean, that was the name of the game. If my dad could do you free legal work, you could tile his bathroom. And it was a barter system. I think Billy got a tooth pulled in somebody's basement for free legal work from my dad. That's what he did. Teaching. I know Father wants me to wrap this up real quick, but real quick. So one of my dad's things was teaching, and he was great at it, but he was older. And so they had this app called Rate My Teacher, Rate My Professor. And I'm going to read a couple of these to you real quick. Fred definitely knows his stuff. He's 88 years old, so he's been practicing law since the dawn of man. He gives pop quizzes, but eventually started giving take-home instead, and people did poorly. He gives you all the questions for the test ahead of time, too. Biggest complaint is that he's very politically opinionated. Fred scored 3 out of 5 on that. It gets better. Good class and professor. Everything you need to know is covered in his classes. Pop quizzes most days, so you have to read the chapter ahead of time. Only complaint is he is very political. And if you disagree with his views, it can be uncomfortable while he's on his soapbox. Overall, though, he's a great professor. Not bad. 4 out of 5. Fabulous teacher. Material is difficult, but he communicates effectively. Do not skip class as attendance is taken. He is a character, but a devoted teacher. Loves Notre Dame, hates Ohio State. Overall, fantastic. 5 out of 5. Haha, nice. Ask him about Ohio State. He'll freak out. He loves Notre Dame. Gives quizzes on a blackboard, but still uses a typewriter. See if you can get him off on a tangent with one of these subjects. Just do the work and pay attention to the test review questions and you'll be fine. 5 out of 5. Last one. Mr. Friend is more than just a teacher. teacher. He's a role model to students of what to be like when we are older. He is a kind, caring man who values his students greatly. A pleasure to talk to and work with. Whenever I have a question, he is always able to assist me. A great man, a great teacher, a great friend. Friend in caps. 5 out of 5. That's what he was. He was just like that as a dad, you know? I just want to leave you with one thing. He was proud of my kids. There's a wonderful note that he wrote that my son will get at some point that I was able to see this past weekend when I was going through stuff. My dad wrote wonderful, wonderful letters. I've got hundreds of them. He sent them to me, and they sustained us. And it was just a great way to see the inner workings of his mind. But he was my best man at my wedding. And it was an interesting day because he gave a speech. And the first bit of the speech was about the black and tan and the Irish Catholics against the Protestants. And nobody understood what was happening. And it was so weird, as my dad's prone to be. But on the tail end of that, he looked at me, and there's a song that he sang to me. It was from Going My Way. Bing Crosby, Father Flanagan. It's an old Irish lullaby. It's called Tooraloo. We're gonna do this one for him. Over in Killarney, many years ago, me mother sang this song to me in tones so soft and low. Just a simple little ditty in a good old Irish way. And I wish the world that I could hear that song again today. Oh, tooraloo, raloo, ra, tooraloo, ralai, tooraloo, raloo, ra. Hush now, don't you cry. Tooraloo, raloo, ra, tooraloo.